Hello and welcome back. In today's video, I want to quickly discuss the concept of relativistic force. Now, as we have seen in my earlier lectures, that special theory of relativity brings a lot of new novel ideas into the picture of how we explain motion. So the question is, what is the nature of force given the postulates of relativity? Or more specifically, what is the nature of the Newton's second law? We know the nature of the Newton's second law in classical mechanics. F is equal to ma. The question is, does this form still hold true under the postulates of relativity? Or it is completely invalid? Or can we make some sort of a substitution or modify it to make it consistent with the postulates of relativity? Now, in one of my previous lectures, I talked about the idea of relativistic momentum. I said that momentum, which is usually defined as mass times velocity, is not actually correct when we go into the relativistic domain. That is, whenever particles are moving at very, very high velocities, velocity is comparable to the speed of light. So in classical or Newtonian mechanics, the momentum that is defined is actually the rest mass multiplied by the velocity. So what is the rest mass? Well, rest mass is simply the mass of an object that is measured in the rest frame of reference of that particular object. However, this momentum as it is defined is not conserved when we talk about relativistic dynamics. But we can modify this momentum to something which can be used in conservation principles whenever we are talking about systems in which we need to take into account the relativistic corrections. And we can do that by introducing this gamma factor here. The moment I introduce this gamma factor, this is not the ordinary momentum we define in Newtonian mechanics. Instead, this is what is known as the relativistic momentum. Now, this is a relativistic momentum expression can be used consistently across the board here. So this is what I'm going to apply in our attempt to derive an expression for the relativistic force. So if I write the expression for gamma correctly, this expression simply becomes m naught v upon root over 1 minus v square upon c square. So gamma is simply nothing but 1 upon root over 1 minus v square upon c square. That means when I apply this slight modification to the ordinary definition of momentum by introducing this gamma factor, then this entire expression of p is equal to gamma m naught v can be applied in our attempt at deriving what is the force. So we already know that force is the time rate of change of momentum. So to make sure that the expression of force that we want to obtain is consistent with the principles of relativity, the momentum that I use here must be this particular relativistic momentum. If I apply the relativistic momentum here, then I will apply some kind of an expression for force which will be consistent with the principles of relativity. So let us do that and see what kind of an expression we actually end up getting. All right. So if P is equal to gamma m naught v, so I'm going to write this as m naught because m naught represents the rest mass or the invariant mass, because this is the mass which is independent of the motion of an object, because this is measured at rest. So if I apply this expression here, then force expression simply becomes F is equal to d upon dt of gamma m naught v. All right. Now m naught here is a constant for a given particle, and v here depends on the velocity, right? It depends on the motion of the body, and gamma also in a way depends on the velocity. Yeah. So gamma also depends on velocity, and v itself is dependent on velocity. So to simplify the expression of this derivative, what I'm going to do is, first I'm going to concentrate only on one dimensional motion. So I'm going to talk about if motion is constrained. Because these are vector quantities, the physical quantities have directions within them. So to simplify the calculations, I am going to consider that if the motion is constrained to one dimension, such that the force applied is in the direction of the initial velocity or is in the direction of motion. Which means what? It means that if there is some kind of an object, all right, and its motion is restricted to only one dimension, that means it can have a velocity component only in this particular dimension. In that situation, if the force that is being applied is also in the same direction, all right, in that case I can say that force is actually parallel to V. Whatever the force direction is, it is parallel to V. Under that circumstance, what I can do is I can use this equation and I can further resolve its terms. So let's suppose this is equation number A. So equation A simply becomes, it's quite a simple set of calculations. So F is equal to d upon dt gamma m naught V. I can take the m naught out of the derivative. So this becomes d upon dt of gamma V. Now V and gamma, they both depend on the velocity. So I can apply the chain rule and this becomes m naught d gamma upon dt V plus gamma dV upon dt. Okay, now gamma is this. So here, if I'm interested in the derivative of this gamma factor, then the gamma derivative d gamma upon dt is simply equal to d upon dt of 1 upon root over 1 minus v square upon c square. So this is simply nothing but you have the square root term. So here you will end up getting minus half, and then you have 1 minus v square upon c square, and minus half minus 1 becomes minus 3 upon 2. And then here again, if you do a derivative of this v square, you end up basically getting minus twice v upon c square into dv upon dt. So this is simply nothing but the minus and minus here gets cancelled, the 2 and the 2 here gets cancelled, and this simply becomes 1 minus v square upon c square minus 3 upon 2 v upon c square dv upon dt. Now let me apply this or substitute this here. If I substitute this here, it simply ends up becoming m naught, and here I have 1 minus v square upon c square. You have minus 3 upon 2. Now here we have a v and here we have a v. This simply becomes v square upon c square, and then you have dv upon dt, which is nothing but the acceleration along that particular direction, plus gamma, which is simply 1 upon root over. So here I can simply write that this is nothing but 1 minus v square upon c square to the power minus half dv upon dt, which is the acceleration along that predetermined path. So if I take m naught and 1 minus v square upon c square minus 3 by 2 out of the expression, this simply becomes v square upon c square. This expression dv upon dt is nothing but the acceleration along that particular path. So I'm going to write this as a. So the direction of a is the same as the direction of the force. Plus, since I've taken this term out of the bracket, so I'm left with 1 minus v square by c square into the acceleration. All right. Now let us resolve these terms, m naught, and this is what? This is gamma, which is simply equal to root over 1 minus v square by c square to the power 3. So this is gamma cube. And here we have, if I take the a as a common, v square upon c square plus 1 minus v square upon c square. That's it. Here, the v square upon c square term gets cancelled. And finally, we obtain a form of the force expression, that is F is equal to gamma cube m naught a. This is the expression for the Newton's second law under relativistic mechanics if the motion of the object is constrained in one direction. So if the motion of the object is constrained in only one direction and the force is applied in a direction in which the object has some velocity, in that situation the acceleration that the object is going to experience will be given by this expression. Now this is very much unlike the Newtonian expression for force. What is the Newtonian expression? Newtonian expression is quite simply F is equal to ma. What does this mean? It simply means that 1 unit of force, if applied to 1 unit of mass, let us write m naught here just to make sure that this is rest mass. So what does the Newtonian expression mean? It simply means that 1 unit of force, if applied to 1 unit of mass, will produce 1 unit of acceleration. Right, so if you give 1 unit of force to 1 unit of mass, it will produce 1 unit of acceleration. However, that is not the same as this Newton's second law in its relativistic form. As it just so happens that the Newton's second law in its relativistic form is quite interesting. It simply means that there is actually a speed barrier. Okay, so let me demonstrate what I mean by that. So in the Newtonian case, if you provide a constant force to a unit mass, the nature of the acceleration will actually be a constant, right? For a Newtonian case, the nature of the acceleration will be constant for constant force or constant F applied to an object. On the other hand, if you provide a constant force to the relativistic object, and by relativistic I mean we are talking about velocities which are comparable to the speed of light. In that kind of a situation, the nature of the acceleration is actually directly proportional to gamma to the power minus 3. Okay, F here is a constant, m naught here is a constant, so the nature of the acceleration is directly proportional to gamma to the power minus 3. That means whenever velocities are very, very less, we will actually see the Newtonian case, but when velocities are very, very high, we actually see something very, very interesting. So let me demonstrate that by a simple graph. Now we can draw that graph by just looking at this particular expression, that if for a constant force, if we provide a constant force to a unit mass, then the acceleration that the force is going to experience is also going to be constant. That means the rate at which the velocity is going to change, that is dv upon dt, is also going to be a constant, which simply means that dv is equal to constant multiplied by dt, and if we integrate both sides, I simply get that velocity is actually directly proportional to time. That means as the velocity, or rather as the time goes on, when we constantly give a constant force to an object, the velocity also constantly increases. So let me demonstrate that by drawing a simple graph. So here if I have, let's suppose a two-dimensional plane in which I represent the x-axis by, let me say that this is time. Okay, by time I mean that there is, let's suppose some kind of a body having some kind of a unit mass, let's suppose m naught. Let's suppose m naught is equal to 1 kilogram, and we provided some kind of a force. All right, if we provided some kind of a force, a constant force, let's suppose we provide a constant force, we keep on providing this constant force. So what happens is that under the experience of a constant force, with time, the velocity is going to increase in a manner that it is directly proportional. That means I can draw a line that looks something like this. You will get a straight line. So this straight line is representing what we call the Newtonian case. And according to the Newtonian case, as long as you keep on providing a force, the nature of the acceleration is going to be constant if the force is constant. So velocity is going to keep on increasing in the same proportion, so that one day what's going to happen is that one day the nature of the velocity will even exceed, or rather the magnitude of the velocity will exceed what we know as the speed of light. So let's suppose this is v is equal to c line, and in the y-axis this is actually the speed. Okay, how does the speed change with time if we provide a constant force? In the Newtonian case, the velocity at one point in time will go beyond the speed of light as long as you keep on providing a constant force. However, this is only the Newtonian case. We are interested in the relativistic case, isn't it? In the relativistic case, what happens is that in the relativistic case, initially the relativistic expression of what we have just now obtained, which is this expression, tells us that for very, very low velocities, for a unit force, or rather for a constant force applied to a body having some unit mass, the acceleration is also going to be constant. So the nature of the velocity will follow a straight line. But after some time, when the velocity approaches the speed of light, what is going to happen is that this is going to diverge in such a manner that over time the nature of increase of the velocity is going to be such that it is never going to reach the speed of light. You see what is happening? What's happening is that in the lower ends of the velocities, a unit force creates a unit acceleration. However, when velocity increases to such high values that it reaches magnitudes comparable to the speed of light, a unit force does not provide a unit acceleration anymore. In fact, the more and more force you provide, the lesser and lesser acceleration is going to happen. And in our situation, in the graph that we have plotted, for a constant force, the rate of change of velocity is going to be lesser and lesser and lesser. In fact, with more and more velocity, as it approaches the speed of light barrier, the increment in the velocity under the experience of a constant force is also going to decrease on and on, so that with time, the speed is never going to reach the speed of light. For an object having rest mass m0, you can keep on giving a constant force to an object for infinite time period, but the velocity of that object is never going to reach the speed of light. This is the speed of light barrier. Or we can say this is the speed barrier in a universe, that even if you provide a constant force to a constant mass or rest mass object, over a long period of time, its velocity is never going to reach the speed of light, which is not the case for the Newtonian scenario. You see, for the Newtonian case, that's not going to happen. But for the Einstein's relativistic case, so this is a relativistic scenario, this is something completely different. So as you see, the nature of the force is something like this. However, I want to include something before I conclude the video. Here I only took for cases where the motion is constrained to one dimension and when the force is being applied to the direction of velocity. What if we apply the force perpendicular to the direction of velocity? Okay, so if we look at that scenario, so if the force is being applied in a direction which is perpendicular to the velocity, that means if the object is already in motion along a particular direction, let's suppose the object is already in motion along a particular direction, but the force is being applied in a direction which is perpendicular to the instantaneous velocity at that point of the object. In that scenario, I can again apply this equation. Okay, I can take a look at this particular equation where f is equal to d upon dt gamma m naught v, and then see what we get. So f is equal to d upon dt gamma m naught v. In this kind of a situation, if I take the m naught out, I end up getting d gamma upon dt v plus gamma dv upon dt. So in this kind of a scenario, since the force is being applied in a direction perpendicular to the velocity, the force actually tends to make the particle go around in a circle. So in that kind of a situation, the magnitude of the velocity is a constant, so this particular term actually goes to 0, while this particular term here will represent the acceleration in a direction perpendicular to its original motion. So we can say that in this scenario, the force actually leads to gamma m naught a. Okay, here a simply represents the acceleration which is in a direction perpendicular to the velocity. So this is the expression for the force for that situation where the force is being applied in a direction perpendicular to the velocity. And even in this particular scenario, the nature of acceleration is such that the particle will never reach the speed of light. The speed of light will still act as a barrier even when the force is being applied in a perpendicular direction and the particle goes in around circles. So this is the nature of the, what you can say, the Newton's second law under situations where relativistic ideas are valid. So for the cases in which relativistic ideas are valid, the nature of the Newton's second law takes this particular form. So that is all for today. I hope you understood something from this. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next one.